Andrew Malcolm here, Mortgage HQ. Today we're talking about the property cycle and specifically the recovery phase. Now this is the cycle stage that comes after the bust. You can think about winter being the bust and we're going into spring, and that's the recovery. There's new life coming into the market. There's still a lot of uncertainty. There's recessionary traits and characteristics, and people are starting to question whether we're moving from winter into spring or whether we're just seeing a little blip and we're still in that winter phase. You will start to see, when you're moving from bust into recovery, an increased demand for buying. Things like people moving back into New Zealand, more buyers coming into the market. You might see rents start to go up and yields increasing a bit. The relative cost, however, of buying versus renting moves more towards it's better to buy if you can. What you're going to start to see is, as that demand picks up, obviously development is going to pick up as well. Whereas in that previous cycle phases, the incentives for development to happen have been a bit less, and now what we're seeing is finance coming back into play. In the bust phase, capital can dry up, or particular types of funding are not available, and certainly not available to as many people. As we move from that winter into spring period, that recovery phase, then finance does become more readily available, and property values stabilize and they start to creep up. In a period of volatility and in that down bust cycle, you'll see volatility in the market. With uncertainty, people buying and selling, and a lot more uncertainty. But as recovery kicks in and we head towards more of that boom stage, the prices on average should start ticking up. And there certainly will be a shift in the media and in the everyday conversation from maybe a negative sentiment about property and about investing, and starts becoming more of a positive sentiment about investment, about buying properties, about owning rental properties. And this is the most important stage if you are a long-term investor, in my opinion, because it's probably the best time to buy. If you have a lot of capital and resources, you can buy in any stage as long as you're buying at the right price. But if you can time the market well and get out of that bust stage, you want to see a little bit of strong momentum, enough to indicate to you that you're heading from bust into recovery. And that you want to remember also that there's a lot of bust markets that are short or small, and that the recovery phase can kick in very quickly, and it can be deceptive. It can be hard to tell that the recovery phase is back in the game. So the trick is, you want to buy in the recovery phase. You probably want to have your finance or resources available before the bust, because it might be hard to get that money ready to go in that bust period, so you can buy in the recovery. So it's about understanding the property cycles, but making sure that if you are keen to buy in the next 5 years, you want to have your finance ready. Monitor the market. Most people are not going to stay up to the plate all the time. You just want to be able to assess, talk to a few people where we are in that phase of the property cycle. And you have to remember, places like Auckland, Wellington, Tauranga, Christchurch, they're going through the property cycle at different times. In New Zealand, a lot of the history shows that Auckland is the leader in the property cycle, and then other centres follow, major centres, and then the smaller centres follow that. In the next video, we're going to talk about some statistics that we can see from the boom phases. A recovery phase is hard to assess in the moment. You might be trajectory of recovery, but on that day, in that week, it's hard to tell. So what it helps to do is analyze the historical recovery periods, and that will help you learn. So check out the next video on the boom phase, and we can have a look at what has just gone on in some of the major markets, and surely what will follow if we do have another big bust coming up soon.